The Lesson by Toni Cade Bambara. Back in the days when everyone was old and stupid or young and foolish and me and Sugar were the only ones just right, this lady moved down our block with nappy hair and proper speech and no makeup. And quite naturally we laughed at her, laughed the way we did at the junk man who went about his business like he was some big-time president and his sorry-ass horse's secretary. And we kinda hated her too. Hated the way we did the winos who cluttered up our parks and pissed on our handball walls and stank up our hallways and stairs so you couldn't halfway play hide and seek without a goddamn gas mask. Miss Moore was her name, the only woman on the block with no first name, and she was black as hell, except for her feet, which were fish white and spooky. And she was always planning these boring-ass things for us to do, us being my cousin, mostly, who lived on the block 'cause we all moved north the same time and to the same apartment, then spread out gradual to breathe. And our parents would yank our heads into some kind of shape and crisp up our clothes so we'd be presentable for travel with Miss Moore, who always looked like she was going to church, though she never did. Which is just one of the things the grown-ups talked about when they talked behind her back like a dog. But when she came calling with some sachet she'd sewed up, or some gingerbread she'd made, or some book, why then they'd all be too embarrassed to turn her down, and we'd get handed over all spruced up. She'd been to college and said it was only right that she should take responsibility for the young one's education, and she not even related by marriage or blood, so they'd go for it, especially Aunt Gretchen. She was the main gopher in the family. You got some old dumb shit foolishness you want somebody to go for, you send for Aunt Gretchen. She been screwed into the go-along for so long it's a blood-deep natural thing for her. Which is how she got saddled with me and Sugar and Junior in the first place while our mothers were in a la-dee-da apartment up the block having a good old time. So this one day Miss Moore rounds us all up at the mailbox, and it's purty hot, and she's knocking herself out about arithmetic, and school's supposed to let up in the summer, I heard, but she don't never let us, and the starch in my pinafore scratching the shit out of me, and I'm really hating this nappy-head bitch and a goddamn college degree. I'd much rather go to the pool or to the show where it's cool. So me and Sugar leaning on the mailbox being surly, which is a Miss Moore word, and Flyboy checking out what everybody brought for lunch, and Fatbutt already wasting his peanut butter and jelly sandwich like the pig he is, and Junebug punching on QT's arm for potato chips, and Rosie Giraffe shifting from one hip to the other, waiting for somebody to step on her foot or ask her if she's from Georgia so she can kick ass, preferable Mercedes. And Miss Moore asking us do we know what money is, like we a bunch of retards. I mean real money, she say, like it's only poker chips and Monopoly papers we lay on the grocer. So right away I'm tired of this, and I say so, and would much rather snatch Sugar and go to the Sunset and terrorize the West Indian kids and take their hair ribbons and their money too. And Miss Moore files that remark away for next week's lesson's brotherhood, I can tell. And finally I say we ought to get to the subway 'cause it's cooler, and besides we might meet some cute boys. Sugar done swiped her mama's lipstick. We ready. So we headin' down the street, and she's boring us silly about what things cost and what our parents make and how much goes for rent and how money ain't divided up right in this country. And then she gets to the part about we all poor and live in the slums, which I don't feature. And I'm ready to speak on that, but she steps out in the street and hails 2 cabs just like that. Then she hustles half the crew in with her and hands me a $5 bill and tells me to calculate 10% tip for the driver. And we're off. Me and Sugar and Junebug and Flyboy hanging out the window and hollering to everybody, putting lipstick on each other 'cause Flyboy a faggot anyway, and making farts with our sweaty armpits. But I'm mostly trying to figure out how to spend this money. But they're all fascinated with the meter ticking, and Junebug starts laying bets as to how much it'll read when Flyboy can't hold his breath no more. And then Sugar lays bets as to how much it'll be when we get there. So I'm stuck. Don't nobody want to go for my plan, which is to jump out at the next light and run off to the first barbecue we can find. Then the driver tells us to get the hell out 'cause we there already. And the meter reads 85 cents. And I'm stalling to figure out the tip, and Sugar say give him a dime, and I decide he don't need it as bad as I do, so later for him. But then he tries to take off with Junebug foot still in the door, so we talk about his mama something ferocious. Then we check out that we on 5th Avenue and everybody dressed up in stockings. One lady in a fur coat, hot as it is. White folks crazy. This is the place, Miss Moore say, presenting it to us in the voice she uses at the museum. Let's look in the windows before we go in. Can we steal? Sugar asks, very serious, like she getting the ground rules squared away before she plays. I beg your pardon? Says Miss Moore, and we fall out. So she leads us around the windows of the toy store, and me and Sugar screaming, "This is mine, that's mine, I gotta have that, and that was made for me, I was born for that," until Big Butt drowns us out. "Hey, I'm gonna buy that there." "That there? You don't even know what that is, stupid." "I do so," he say, punching on Rosie Giraffe. "It's a microscope." "What you gonna do with a microscope, fool?" "Look at things." "Like what, Ronald?" asked Miss Moore, and Big Butt ain't got the first notion. So here go Miss Moore grabbing about the thousands of bacteria in a drop of water, and the something rothater in a speck of blood, and the 1,000,001 living things in the air around us is invisible to the naked eye. And what'd she say that for? Junebug go to town on that naked, and we rollin'. Then Miss Moore ask what it cost, so we all jam into the window, smudging it up, and the price tag say $300. So then she ask how long it'd take for Big Butt and Junebug to save up their allowances. "Too long," I say. "Yeah," adds Sugar. "Outgrown it by that time." And Miss Moore say, "No, you never outgrow learning instruments. Why, even medical students and interns and blah, blah, blah." And we ready to choke Big Butt for bringing it up in the first damn place. "This here costs $480, says Rosie Giraffe. So we pile up all over to her to see what she pointed out. My eyes tell me it's a chunk of glass cracked with something heavy, and different color inks dripped into the splits, then the whole thing put into an oven or something. But the $480, it don't make sense. That's a paperweight made of semi-precious stones fused together under tremendous pressure," she explained slowly, with her hands doing the mining and all the factory work. "So what's a paperweight?" asked Rosie Giraffe. "To weigh paper with, dumbbell," say Flyboy, the wise man from the East. "Not exactly," say Miss Moore, which is what she say when you warm or weigh off too. "It's to weigh paper down so it won't scatter and make your desk untidy." So right away, me and Sugar curtsy to each other, and then to Mercedes, who is more of the tidy type. "We don't keep paper on top of the desk in my class," say Junebug, figuring Miss Moore crazy or lying one. "At home, then," she say. "Don't you have a calendar and a pencil case and a blotter and a letter opener on your desk at home when you do your homework?" And she know damn well what our homes look like, 'cause she nosy around in them every chance she gets. "I don't even have a desk," say Junebug. "Do we?" "No, and I don't think I get no homework either," say Big Butt. "And I don't even have a home," say Flyboy, like you do at school to keep the white folks off his back and sorry for him. Send this poor kid to camp posters and his specialty. "I do," says Mercedes. "I have a box of stationery on my desk and a picture of my cat. My godmother bought the stationery and the desk. There's a big rose on each sheet and the envelopes smell like roses." "Who wants to know about your smelly-ass stationery?" say Rosie Giraffe, before I can get my 2 cents in. "It's important to have a work area all your own so that—" "Will you look at this sailboat, please?" say Flyboy, cutting her off and pointing to the thing like it was his. So once again we tumble all over each other to gaze at this magnificent thing in the toy store, which is big enough to maybe sail 2 kittens across the pond if you strap them to the post tight. We all start reciting the price tag like we in an assembly. "Handcraft sailboat of fiberglass at $1,195. "Unbelievable," I hear myself say, and am really stunned. I'll read it again for myself just in case a group recitation put me in a trance. Same thing. For some reason that pisses me off. We look at Miss Moore and she looking at us, waiting for I don't know what. Who'd pay all that when you can buy a sailboat set for $0.25 at Pop's, a tube of blue for $0.10, and a ball of string for 8 cents? It must have a motor and a whole lot else besides, I say. My sailboat cost me about 50 cents. "But will it take water?" say Mercedes with her smart ass. "Took mine to Alley Pond Park once," say Flyboy. "String broke. Lost it. Pity. Sailed mine in Central Park and it keeled over and sank. Had to ask my father for another $1. "And you got the strap," laughed Big Butt. "The jerk didn't even have a string on it. My old man wailed on his behind." Little QT was staring hard at the sailboat, and you could see he wanted it bad. But he too little, and somebody'd just take it from him. So what the hell? "This boat for kids, Miss Moore?" "Barren silly to buy something like that just to get all broke up," say Rosie Giraffe. "That much money it should last forever," I figure. "My father'd buy it for me if I wanted it." "Your father my ass," say Rosie Giraffe, getting a chance to finally push Mercedes. Must be rich people shop here, say QT. You are a very bright boy, say Flyboy. What was your first clue? And he rapped him on the head with the back of his knuckles, since QT the only one he could get away with. Though QT liable to come up behind you years later and get his licks in when you half expect it. What I want to know, I says to Miss Moore, though I never talked to her, I wouldn't give the bitch the satisfaction, is how much a real boat costs. I figure 1,000 to get you a yacht any day. Why don't you check that out, she says, and report back to the group. Which really pains my ass. If you're going to mess up a perfectly good swim day, least you could do is have some answers. Let's go in, she say like she got something up her sleeve. Only she don't lead the way, so me and Sugar turn the corner to where the entrance is, but when we get there I kinda hang back. Not that I'm scared, what there's to be afraid of, just a toy store. But I feel funny. Shame. But what I got to be shamed about? I got as much right to go in as anybody, but somehow I can't seem to get hold of the door, so I step away for Sugar to lead. But she hangs back too. And I look at her, and she looks at me, and this is ridiculous. I mean, damn, I have never ever been shy about doing nothing or going nowhere. But then Mercedes steps up, and then Rosie Giraffe and Big Butt crowd in behind and shove, and the next thing we all stuffed into the doorway with only Mercedes squeezing past us, smoothing out her jumper and walking right down the aisle. Then the rest of us tumble in like a glue-together jigsaw done all wrong, and people looking at us, and it's like the time me and Sugar crashed into the Catholic Church on a dare. But once we got in there, and everything's so hushed and holy, and the candles and the bow wind and the handkerchiefs on all the drooping heads, I just couldn't go through with the plan, which was for me to run up to the altar and do a tap dance while Sugar played the nose flute and messed around in the holy water, and Sugar kept giving me the elbow. Then later teased me so bad I tied her up in the shower and turned it on and locked her in, and she'd still be there to this day if Aunt Gretchen hadn't finally figured I was lying about the boarder taking a shower. Same thing in the store. We all walking on tiptoe and hardly touching the games and puzzles and things, and I watched Miss Moore, who was steady, watching us like she waiting for a sign, like Mama Drury watches the sky and sniffs the air and takes note of just how much slant is in the bird formation. Then me and Sugar bump smack into each other, so busy gazing at the toys, especially a sailboat, but we don't laugh and go into our fat lady bump stomach routine. We just stare at that price tag, and then Sugar run a finger over the whole boat, and I'm jealous and want to hit her. Maybe not her, but I sure want to punch somebody in the mouth. What you bring us here for, Miss Moore? You sound angry, Sylvia. Are you mad about something? Giving me one of them grins like she's telling a grown-up joke that never turns out to be funny, and she's looking very closely at me like maybe she's planning to do my portrait from memory. I'm mad, but I won't give her that satisfaction, so I slouch around the store being very bored and say, let's go. Me and Sugar at the back of the train watching the tracks whizzing by larger than small, then getting gobbled up in the dark. I'm thinking about this tricky toy I saw in the store. A clown that somersaults on a bar, then does chin-ups 'cause you yank lightly at his leg. Cost $35. I could see me asking my mother for a $35 birthday clown. You want a who that costs what? She'd say, cocking her head to the side to get a better view of the hole in my head. $35 could buy new bunk beds for Junior and Gretchen's boy. $35 and the whole household could visit Granddaddy Nelson in the country. $35 would pay for the rent and the piano bill too. Who are these people that spend that much for performing clowns and $1,000 for toy sailboats? What kind of work they do and how they live and how come we ain't in on it? Where we are is who we are, Miss Moore always pointing out. But it don't necessarily have to be that way, she always adds, and waits for somebody to say that poor people have to wake up and demand their share of the pie, and don't none of us know what kind of pie she's talking about in the first damn place. But she ain't so smart, 'cause I still got her $4 from the taxi, and she sure ain't getting it, messing up my day with this shit. Sugar nudges me in my pockets and winks. Miss Moore lines us up in front of the mailbox where we started from, seemed like a year ago, and I got a headache from thinking so hard. And we lean all over each other so we can hold up under the draggy-ass lecture she always finishes off with at the end before we thank her for boring us to tears. But she just looks at us like she reading tea leaves. Finally, she say, "Well, what did you think of FAO Schwarz?" Rosie Giraffe mumbles, "White folks crazy." "I'd like to go there again when I get my birthday money," says Mercedes, and we shove her out the pack so she has to lean on the mailbox by herself. "I'd like a shower. Tiring day," say Flyboy. Then Sugar surprises me by saying, "You know, Miss Moore, I don't think all of us here put together eat in a year what that sailboat costs." And Miss Moore lights up like somebody goosed her. "Aunt," she say, urging Sugar on. Only I'm standing on her foot so she don't continue. Imagine for a minute what kind of society it is in which some people can spend on a toy what it would cost to feed a family of 6 or 7. What do you think?" "I think," says Sugar, pushing me off her feet like she never done before, 'cause I whip her ass in a minute, "that this is not much of a democracy if you ask me. Equal chance to pursue happiness means an equal crack at the dough, don't it?" Miss Moore is beside herself, and I am disgusted with Sugar's treachery, so I stand on her foot one more time to see if she'll shove me. She shuts up, and Miss Moore looks at me, sorrowfully, I'm thinking, and something weird is going on. I can feel it in my chest. "Anybody else learn anything today?" Looking dead at me. I walk away, and Sugar has to run to catch up and don't even seem to notice when I shrug her arm off my shoulder. "Well, we got $4 anyway," she says. "Uh-huh." "We could go to Hampscomb's and get a half chocolate layer and then go to the Sunset and still have plenty of money for potato chips and ice cream sodas." "Uh-huh." "Race you to Hanscom's," she say. We start down the block and she gets ahead, which is okay by me because I'm going to the West End and then over to the Drive to think this day through. She can run if she want to and even run faster, but ain't nobody gonna beat me at nothing.